The Middle East is once again at the center of global attention as tensions between Iran, Israel and the United States continue to escalate. What began as targeted military strikes has quickly developed into a broader geopolitical crisis that could have serious consequences for global security, energy markets, and everyday life around the world. The latest escalation began after coordinated military strikes by the United States and Israel targeted Iranian military and energy infrastructure. According to multiple international reports, several important facilities connected to Iran's oil industry were hit during these attacks. Large fires were reported at storage sites and energy facilities, raising concerns about both economic damage and environmental impact. The strikes were intended to weaken Iran's strategic capabilities and reduce its influence across the region. However, the response from Tehran came quickly and forcefully. Iran rejected diplomatic pressure for an immediate ceasefire and instead launched a wave of retaliation. Ballistic missiles and armed drones were fired toward Israeli targets, including areas near Tel Aviv, while additional threats were directed toward infrastructure connected to U.S. allies in the Persian Gulf region. Military analysts say these retaliatory attacks were designed to send a clear signal that Iran would not accept military pressure without responding. As the military situation intensified, attention quickly shifted to one of the most strategically important waterways in the world, the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow passage between Iran and Oman serves as one of the main shipping routes for global oil supplies. Normally, roughly one-fifth of the world's oil passes through this corridor every day. When tensions rise in this area, the entire global energy market reacts almost immediately. During the recent escalation, tanker traffic moving through the Strait of Hormuz dropped dramatically. Several shipping companies temporarily paused operations in the area due to safety concerns, and some vessels reportedly turned around before entering the waterway. Even the possibility of disruptions in this shipping lane can send shockwaves through global markets, because so many major oil producers depend on it to export their energy supplies. Countries such as Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates rely heavily on this route to move oil to international buyers. If shipments are delayed or blocked, global oil supply becomes tighter, and prices tend to rise quickly. Energy traders and market analysts have already reported increased volatility in oil markets since the conflict intensified. For American consumers, the effects of such disruptions can appear surprisingly fast. Even though the United States produces a significant amount of its own oil, fuel prices in America are still connected to global energy markets. When oil becomes more expensive worldwide, gasoline prices in the U.S. often rise as well. Higher oil prices do not only affect drivers at the gas pump. Energy costs influence transportation, shipping, and production across the entire economy. When those costs increase, businesses may raise prices to cover expenses. Over time, this can contribute to higher costs for everyday goods, including groceries and household products. Beyond the economic consequences, the humanitarian situation in the region is also becoming increasingly concerning. Reports from inside Iran describe damage to civilian areas and important infrastructure following the strikes. Hospitals, schools, and residential neighborhoods have reportedly been affected in some areas, though the full scale of the damage remains difficult to confirm due to limited access for international observers. At the same time, the retaliatory missile attacks have increased fears among neighboring countries that the conflict could expand beyond its current boundaries. Governments across the Persian Gulf region are closely monitoring the situation while strengthening defensive measures around critical infrastructure such as ports, energy facilities, and military bases. Another growing concern involves the political alliances within the region. Some Gulf states have historically maintained strong security partnerships with the United States, but recent events are prompting leaders to reconsider how vulnerable their own infrastructure might be if the conflict continues to escalate. As a result, several governments are now evaluating both diplomatic and military strategies to protect their national interests. International diplomats have been working to encourage de-escalation and push for negotiations that could prevent a larger regional war. However, progress toward a ceasefire has been slow. Iran's leadership has made it clear that they will not agree to negotiations under what they describe as military pressure, while Western officials continue to demand that Iran reduce its retaliatory actions. Military experts warn that the biggest risk now is the possibility of a wider confrontation involving multiple countries. The Middle East is home to numerous U.S. military bases, important trade routes, and key energy infrastructure. If attacks begin to target additional locations or strategic assets, the situation could rapidly expand into a much larger conflict. For now, the situation remains extremely volatile. The confrontation between Iran, Israel, and the United States is no longer just a regional dispute. It has become a global geopolitical issue that could influence energy prices, economic stability, and international security in the months ahead. What happens next will depend on a combination of military decisions, diplomatic efforts, and the willingness of multiple governments to step back from further escalation. The coming weeks may determine whether the crisis stabilizes through negotiation or develops into one of the most serious international conflicts in recent years.